former and one current president were in New York City last night. Barack Obama and Bill Clinton joined President Biden for a fundraiser that his campaign says raised more than $26 million. Meanwhile, on Long Island, Donald Trump attended a wake for an NYPD officer killed during a traffic stop. Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne join us now for more context on all of this. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst who served in the George W. Bush administration, and Joel is a CBS News political contributor, Democratic strategist, and chief communications officer for Move On. Thanks to both of you for being here. There is so much to chat about this morning. I'll start with you, Joel. What does this mean for Biden to have support from people like Obama and Clinton, and what are their roles in this campaign?
It's all about the money, right? The 26 million plus is an eye-popping number. And I think it tracks to, what's been a really successful stretch for President Biden in some recent fundraisers. For a long time, I've said, I don't think money is going to be a determining factor this election. And by that, I just mean both sides are going to have enough money. Democrats and Republicans are going to be able to raise enough money. I still think that's the case. I think what's key about the fundraising efforts is the management of the money. The Biden campaign has been very smart and very strategic about when they deploy those assets. And also, they have not had the things weighing them down like Republicans have, like President Trump's legal bills and mismanagement at the RNC. So while I think there's plenty of money flowing through both political parties, I think Democrats definitely have an edge when it comes to cash on hand and how they are managing their resources going into November.
Okay, let's talk Trump. Leslie, what message was he trying to send by attending that wake in New York City yesterday?
I think it was a contrast to two Americas. I mean, in very much sense, this is something I think the Trump campaign would come forward and say. While the former president is focusing, as he said in his comments, on law and order, crime and the rise of crime, along with inflation, are two of the top issues that voters, especially those that are deciding, and looking at the context of these two different campaigns, that's one of the issues that's top of mind. And I love what Joel said about the money. It's not about the money when it's really about the money. It's always about either money or optics. And the optics are that he's with the men and women in blue, that he is still part of this state that is a very blue state. But when you're talking about big donors in a very elite environment, from $250 to $500,000 per ticket to sit with former presidents versus the hard men and women that are working to keep the city safe, I think Trump wins that one just optically.
Okay, Joel, let me ask you about the money, since we've been talking about the money, because Biden raises a historic amount, right? $26 million. That's the most funds raised in a single day campaign event ever. But my question is, if he's raising so much money, why isn't he doing better in the polls?
Oh, I think the polls are just one metric of how both campaigns are doing. I will say there are a recent spate of public polls that show that the post-State of the Union bump has been actually realized to some extent, particularly in some battleground states. But I think any Democratic or any political person worth their salt would be foolish to reach any conclusions about where the race is going to be based on where it is right now. I think that money is to allow the Biden campaign to plan to do very targeted micro-influencer programs, very targeted paid media programs. They can make reservations months in advance. They have the cost certainty. And while I think one of the disadvantages of holding on to that money to this point is that they have not been able to ramp up their campaign yet. They are doing that ramp right now, and I think that they're hoping that they'll see the positive benefits of that over the recent or over the coming weeks and months.
Leslie, the RNC has been asking candidates if they believe the election was stolen. As someone who's worked for the RNC before, what's your take on this?
It's an interesting thing. I've been hearing about it for a long time. When they were talking about new leadership, I think that's a distinction that does not work to bridge the party and bringing it together. When they're looking at the context of was the election stolen, those types of things, it's regurgitating a lot of the past, and that's where the friction is within the party. There's a tremendous opportunity right now to bring the party together, to unite, along with folks who are really kind of bit frustrated and are ready to move back into the Republican Party. Maybe they weren't as engaged in 2020 to come back in. But that kind of litmus test, whether it be for staff or it be for candidates, is really at the Republicans' peril because it doesn't allow movement for a conversation. I think if the real question is, do we believe that Republican policies are better for this country? We can come together and align around those values like we have in the past, and that we are going to stick conventionally to those values, because that's the criticism among conservatives and Tea Party types, is that the old Republican Party capitulates. It falls way to compromise with Democrats, and we never get anywhere. There needs to be a new alignment around these new values and a tougher stance that is that really representative of a presidency of Donald Trump.
Okay, interesting take. Also want to mention that today is the funeral for former Senator and one-time vice presidential candidate Joe Lieberman. This is someone who was also the founding chairman of No Labels. So, Joel, how does his death impact the group's efforts to find a new unity ticket candidate? Does this sort of complicate that?
Look, I think certainly losing a leading voice in the effort that they were pushing for will certainly impact them. I want to compartmentalize just, Joe Lieberman, his career, his accomplishments from any political disagreements that a lot of Democrats might have had about his work with No Labels. I think that plenty of people can do the compartmentalizing of respecting the career and the legacy of public service while being able to put their disagreements to the side to mourn and honor him. And I think No Labels will have some choices to make about what they want to do. Ironically, around the time that the announcement of Senator Lieberman's death came a few days ago, Chris Christie also pulled himself back from consideration for No Labels. So I think that there's a question of whether or not there's interest in people doing that. But I think folks are trying to compartmentalize respecting Senator Lieberman's career and giving No Labels, the feedback of concern about what a No Labels bid would do.
And Leslie, just quickly want to get your thoughts as well on this.
Having covered Senator Lieberman, been in politics for a long time, it was a man of tremendous conviction and bringing people together. And the idea of that's, kind of what spawned No Labels. The fact they have not been able, as Joel said, to get anybody at the top of the ticket doesn't discount the amount of energy there is around people wanting to find something palatable to bring the country together. And I think if there's a legacy to be remembered, that would be part of it.
Okay, Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne, thanks to both of you.